The story begins with a well-known journalist named Jerry Each, who was recently fired from his job because of fake reporting. Now he was desperately looking for a chance to make headlines again. That's when he received a phone call saying that in a nearby village, strange marks had appeared overnight on a cow's body. Marks that looked like some kind of black magic. Jerry immediately grabbed his camera and rushed to the scene. But upon closer look, he realized it was nothing more than a rock band's logo. Disappointed, he was about to leave when he suddenly heard a strange voice of a woman coming from near the field. Following the voice, he reached an old dried-up tree. Inside the hollow trunk, he found a glowing doll. To his shock, the doll was bound in chains and had a date written across its body. February 31st, 10,845, a date that doesn't even exist in reality. The farmer explained that in ancient times, people used to bury clay dolls in their fields to bring good weather and a plentiful harvest. But Jerry thought this could make a perfect news story. Without wasting time, he smashed the doll to pieces. Little did he know that in doing so, he had unleashed an ancient, buried power. Strange things began to happen as he made his way back. Suddenly, Jerry noticed the same woman walking into the forest. Gathering courage, he followed her, and once again, he arrived at that same tree. The woman was kneeling, chanting strange mantras. Jerry grew nervous and tried to stop her. Just then, the girl collapsed and fainted. Jerry picked her up and carried her to the nearby village. That's where a priest, Father Hagen, lived. It turned out that the girl was actually his niece, Alice. Her parents had died when she was a child, and the priest had raised her himself. But the shocking thing was, when she regained consciousness, Alice only communicated through gestures, as if she were mute and deaf. This confused Jerry, because he himself had heard her voice. He realized there was more to the story than met the eye. So he decided to stay in the village for a few days to uncover the truth. The very next day during prayer, something happened that shocked everyone. Alice suddenly stood up and without saying a word walked outside. Several children followed her, expressionless. Everyone ended up at that same old tree in the forest. There, Alice looked up at the sky as if she was speaking to some invisible force. Then suddenly her lips parted, and she began to speak. Everyone was stunned. No one had ever heard her voice before, and now she was speaking clearly. Alice told everyone that a woman named Maria was contacting her and had given her a message. The next day, everyone must gather there. A miracle would take place. Jerry, who had always considered himself an atheist, was shaken to his core by this event. That night, Jerry had a strange dream. He saw rain suddenly pouring inside a church, and the water droplets were falling directly onto the face of a doll he had taken from the tree a few days earlier. Then, out of the water, a terrifying crawling creature emerged. Jerry woke up in a panic. He thought it was just a dream, but water was really dripping from the ceiling. The next day, everyone once again gathered near the old tree. There, in front of everyone, Alice performed a miracle. A crippled child who had never been able to stand suddenly got up and began to walk. Tears filled everyone's eyes, and they began to see Alice as Mary's messenger. But at that very moment, blood began to stream from the eyes of the Virgin Mary statue inside the church. Within days, news of Alice's powers spread across the village. People started worshiping her as a goddess of miracles. Jerry, on the other hand, saw this as his chance to restore his lost reputation. He called a press conference and turned the news of Mother Mary's arrival into national headlines. Even the Vatican's religious institution recognized the event. Slowly, that mysterious tree came under government protection, but Father Hagen still had doubts. As he closely examined the doll, a monstrous shadow appeared behind the tree. Just then, some people arrived, and the ghostly figure vanished instantly. Meanwhile, Jerry decided to interview Alice, but he was utterly shocked when Alice on her own revealed the secrets of Jerry's past. Just then, the priest arrived. In reality, Hagen was battling cancer, and his days were numbered. But he warned Jerry that whenever an angel-like being descends to Earth, a demonic force often hides behind it. The priest didn't want anything bad to happen to Alice, so he stopped the interview. But the stubborn Jerry returned to the church the next day. While the priest was praying, he suddenly collapsed, struggling to breathe. Alice rushed to him and asked if he truly believed in Mary and was ready to surrender his soul to her. The priest nodded yes. Alice then placed her hand on his chest, and within moments his breathing returned to normal. Upon examination, it was discovered that his lung cancer had completely vanished. Seeing this, people began worshiping Alice even more. The village had now turned into a religious pilgrimage site, with people traveling from afar to witness and testify about the miracles. But the priest's eyes had seen something else. When Alice healed him, at that very moment, he saw a terrifying demonic figure standing nearby. He shuddered inside. To uncover the truth, he pulled out an old diary hidden within the church walls. As he read its pages, his heart sank. The truth was that what everyone believed to be Mary was actually no goddess at all, but an evil spirit from 100 years ago. It was a force that wore the mask of devotion to trap everyone in its web. Father Hagen carefully read the diary, which recorded the events from a century ago. Suddenly, he felt as if invisible eyes were staring at him. Meanwhile, Jerry met with Dr. Gates, told him about the mysterious doll. The doctor believed that the doll was actually a good luck charm that could trap evil spirits inside it. The iron chains wrapped around it and that impossible-looking date were all meant to ensure the evil spirit couldn't escape. Hearing this, Jerry's face fell, because he was hiding the truth. He was the one who had broken the doll. A little later, the two of them went for a walk toward the mountains. That's when Jerry noticed an old house. It was the very same house he had seen in his dreams. Even the river flowing in front of it looked identical, except in his dream, it had been filled with red blood. Jerry grew anxious, feeling like the events were somehow connected to his dreams. Suddenly, he noticed the river's water starting to change in a strange way. But after a few moments, everything seemed normal again. That's when he realized this was no ordinary situation. Meanwhile, Father Hagen was also going through something strange. Inside a small room of the church, he saw a dark shadow. At first, he thought it was just a devotee, but soon the truth became clear. It was the same evil force that had been using Alice. The shadow threatened the priest. "I cured your illness, and you still doubt me? Now that you know the truth, you'll pay for it with your life." Terrified, Hagen ran out of the room. At that very moment, the church bell rang loudly, and before him appeared the same evil spirit, Maria. A few moments later, when Gary reached the church, there was a deathly silence. The priest's body was found, and the police declared it a suicide. But Gary refused to believe it. He thought, why would someone who had just been cured of cancer take his own life? The next day, Jerry interviewed Alice once again. But this time, Alice was completely under Maria's influence. All she could do was praise her endlessly. Seeing this, Jerry decided to uncover the truth himself. He kept watching his old video footage again and again, and when he played the clips in slow motion, it clearly showed a dark shadow standing next to Alice. His blood ran cold, but he didn't give up. The next morning, he went with Dr. Gates to the church's record room. There, they found an old book that told the entire story from 100 years ago. Back then, there was a girl in the village named Mary who claimed to be the incarnation of Mother Maria. She told people that if they worshipped her, all their illnesses would be cured. But anyone who opposed her met a horrifying death. Many fell for her words and died. Eventually, the villagers had enough. They captured Mary and drowned her in an icy river. Before dying, Mary confessed that she was no goddess, but a worshiper of the devil. But the furious villagers didn't stop there. They forced a mask of Mother Maria onto her face. That cursed spirit was the very one that had now returned inside Alice. Finally, the villagers hung Mary from an old banyan tree. It was at that moment Jerry realized that she was the true culprit. Just then, a white sheet hanging nearby began to sway in the wind. Slowly, Jerry gathered his courage and lifted the sheet. He breathed a sigh of relief. It only had a picture of Jesus inside. But the danger wasn't over. The very next moment, both of them ran out of the file room. Jerry thought the truth had to be revealed to save people from this evil spirit. He went to the church and told everything. But to his shock, the priest already knew the truth. The priest told Jerry to stay quiet, because ever since Alice's incident spread, crowds of outsiders had started pouring into the town. This, in turn, had increased the income of both the church and the village. Actually, behind that old scandal, the church had its own compulsions. If the truth came out, both their reputation and income would be ruined. Meanwhile, Dr. Gates's investigation revealed that Alice was actually a descendant of Mary. Mary had made a pact with the devil, and now with Alice's help, she wanted to gain immortality and infinite power. Jerry was stunned by this revelation. Suddenly, the statue of Mother Mary in front of them began to slowly crack. and from it emerged Mary's terrifying form. Jerry's life was in danger when a bishop arrived. He began chanting prayers to banish the spirit, but his Bible suddenly turned into ink. He even lit the holy fire, but that too turned against him. The burning cross wrapped around him, crushing him to death. Somehow, Jerry and Dr. Gates managed to escape from the church. They couldn't understand how Mary had become so powerful. Just then, they saw that Alice had called a gathering where people were worshiping her like a goddess. Mary's strength kept growing through their faith. If Alice collected everyone's souls, Mary would be reborn. Sensing the danger, Jerry tried to reveal the truth to everyone, but no one was willing to listen. They were completely under her spell. Dr. Gates, through gestures, tried to make Alice understand everything, while Mary's voice kept echoing inside Alice's mind. It was a tug of war, Mary tempting her and humanity trying to hold her back. Finally, Alice made a shocking decision. She told the truth in front of everyone. Mr. Fatty is right. Hearing this, the people erupted in anger, and Mary went insane. At that very moment, a dried tree fell in flames, all the crosses caught fire, and the patients Mary had once healed collapsed sick once again. People panicked and ran for their lives. That's when Mary revealed her true demonic form. Her first target was the church's Mother Superior. With her monstrous 30-meter-long arm, she struck, and in an instant, the woman turned to ashes. Terrified, Jerry grabbed Alice and tried to pull her away. But suddenly, Mary teleported right in front of them. She grabbed Jerry's arm tightly and slammed him to the ground with tremendous force. Just then, Mary crawled toward him in a terrifying way, and without showing any mercy, shoved her hand into his leg. She was about to take Jerry's life when Alice suddenly appeared and shielded him from the fatal blow. But fate had its own plans. Mary ended up killing her own daughter, Alice. In other words, she destroyed her very existence with her own hands. The next moment, Mary turned into ashes and scattered into the air. With a broken heart, Gary held Alice in his arms. This was the same man who had never believed in ghosts or spirits, but for the first time, he prayed to God. Crying, he begged for Alice's life to be restored, and a miracle happened. His prayers were answered. After a while, Alice slowly opened her eyes, and that's where the film comes to an end. In the end, if I share my thoughts, Jerry started out chasing the truth only for fame, but later he risked his life to protect Alice. That's the ultimate test of a person's character. So what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Also, subscribe to this channel for more horror stories like this.